Under the vast, unyielding sky of an ordinary afternoon, two lives seemingly worlds apart were quietly woven together by the threads of kindness and resilience. Marcus, a young black man in his mid-twenties, carried the weight of his modest upbringing with a quiet dignity. His hands were calloused from years of honest work, and his eyes held a depth born from navigating the subtle, persistent challenges life had laid before him. He moved through his neighborhood with humility and hope, determined to carve out a future grounded in respect and integrity, even when the world often overlooked his worth. Miles away, in a gleaming glass tower overlooking the city, Evelyn Davenport, an accomplished millionaire and a woman whose poise radiated power and grace, navigated a life sculpted by ambition and careful strategy. Yet beneath the tailored suits and polished exterior, Evelyn carried her own story of resilience, shaped by battles fought behind closed doors and a heart fiercely committed to empathy despite the isolation her wealth sometimes bred. On a quiet stretch of roadside where the hum of traffic softened into a stillness that invited reflection, their paths converged unexpectedly. Evelyn's sleek black sedan had slowed to a halt, the sharp hiss of a flat tire breaking the serene afternoon. Frustration flickered in her eyes, tempered quickly by a composed breath as she stepped out, a figure of composure yet clearly in need of assistance. Marcus, passing by on his way home, noticed the predicament, a moment of choice framed by the humbling unpredictability of life. Without hesitation, he approached, a genuine smile warming his face, his voice steady and kind as he offered help. In that simple exchange, the invisible walls between their contrasting worlds began to crumble. Marcus's hands worked skillfully, changing the tire with practiced ease, but it was the mutual respect that sparked a quiet connection far deeper than circumstance. Evelyn watched not just the movement of his hands but the unwavering patience and care in his demeanor, recognizing in him a kindred spirit shaped by the trials of resilience and the quiet strength of kindness. For Marcus, Evelyn's gratitude was more than polite words, it was an affirmation of dignity, a reminder that kindness could be exchanged freely, without the weight of expectation or judgment. In those shared moments by the roadside, a bridge was built not of wealth or status, but of genuine human connection. They spoke briefly, their conversation a dance of openness and mutual understanding, each revealing just enough to honor the other's journey without pretense. The sun began its slow descent, casting a golden light that seemed to bless the newfound friendship, illuminating how two people, despite their disparate lives, could find common ground in the simplest acts of care. When Marcus finally packed up his tools and prepared to leave, Evelyn extended a hand not just in thanks but in acknowledgement of a rare and meaningful encounter. Their eyes met, conveying an unspoken promise that kindness, once kindled, could ripple far beyond a flat tire on a quiet road. As they parted ways, both carried with them a quiet hope, a reminder that resilience and compassion transcend boundaries, and that sometimes, the most profound connections are found in the humblest moments. In that ordinary afternoon, two souls from different worlds discovered the extraordinary power of respect and genuine care, a testament to the enduring human spirit that binds us all. Under a soft, late afternoon sun, the young man stood by the roadside, his hands steady despite the cool breeze that ruffled the edges of his worn jacket. His life had been a series of quiet struggles, a childhood marked by modest means and the steady, unspoken hope of breaking free from the cycle of hardship. Raised in a small town where dreams often seemed to dissolve into the dust of everyday survival, he had always carried within him a flicker of something more, a yearning to prove himself, not through grand gestures or loud declarations, but by the silent strength of character forged in humility and resilience. That day, as he noticed the woman struggling with a flat tire on the shoulder of the highway, something deeper stirred inside him. Her vulnerability was palpable, yet she carried herself with a quiet dignity that spoke of her own battles, ones hidden beneath the polite, Strained smile she gave him when he offered to help. As he knelt to loosen the lug nuts, his fingers working with practiced care, he felt a surge of unexpected warmth, not just from the sun or the simple satisfaction of fixing a problem, but from the connection blooming in the space between two strangers. Every twist of the wrench was an affirmation of his own worth, a momentary escape from the anonymity he often felt in the rush of life. The woman watched him with a mixture of relief and something softer gratitude that transcended words, a fragile trust beginning to take root. Her eyes, glistening with unshed tears, betrayed a vulnerability she had long concealed from the world, and in that shared silence, the young man saw reflections of his own hopes and fears. He worked with quiet determination, mindful of the weight of this small act, knowing that it was more than just a tire he was changing. It was a moment of kindness, a bridge between two lives momentarily intertwined by circumstance. When the tire was finally secure, he stood and met her gaze, sensing the unspoken thanks lingering in the air like a delicate thread connecting their separate stories. For the young man, this encounter was a subtle but profound awakening, a reminder that strength could be gentle, and humility powerful. It was a fleeting moment, yet one that imprinted itself on his heart, a quiet beacon of hope and human kindness in a world that often seemed indifferent. As they parted ways, the young man carried with him a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that sometimes, the simplest acts of helping another can reveal the deepest truths about oneself, and that in reaching out to lift someone else, we often find the courage to rise a little higher than before. Underneath the shimmering surface of a life many envied, Eleanor Grace carried a solitude few could see. Her world a dazzling kaleidoscope of power lunches, gala invitations, and glass towers that kissed the sky, yet behind each polished smile and carefully crafted Instagram post lay the quiet echo of emptiness that success could never fill. As a self-made millionaire, Eleanor had sculpted her empire from grit and vision, transforming a modest start-up into a multi-million-dollar business that drew admiration and respect from every corner of the industry. Her penthouse apartment, a sanctuary of sleek modernism and curated art, was as much a symbol of achievement as it was a fortress, where the sound of her own footsteps was often the only company she kept. The relentless pressure to maintain perfection, the flawless image, the sharp wit, the unyielding confidence had woven an invisible chain around her heart, isolating her even as she stood in rooms bursting with chatter and laughter. The nights were the hardest, when the weight of silence pressed heavy against her chest and memories of past love and loss drifted like ghosts, reminding her that beneath the millionaire's mask, she was still a woman craving genuine connection, vulnerable and unseen. One late autumn afternoon, on a long, lonely drive out of the city to escape the suffocating buzz of endless meetings and deadlines, fate intervened in the form of a sudden tire blowout on a deserted stretch of highway. Eleanor, in heels and designer coat, found herself stranded by the roadside, heart pounding not from fear but from a rare surge of uncertainty. She was startled when a man in worn jeans and a faded jacket, his smile open and unpretentious, pulled over to offer help. His name was Sam, a mechanic with dirt-streaked hands and a kindness that seemed to seep from every gesture, a stark contrast to the polished world Eleanor inhabited. As they worked together to change the tire, the small, ordinary act of human kindness peeled back the layers of her guarded soul, exposing cracks in the armor she had built so carefully. Sam's gentle conversation, free from pretense or agenda, invited Eleanor into a space where she could breathe, laugh, and even share the quiet ache of loneliness she rarely admitted, even to herself. In his presence, the sharp edges of her life softened, the glamorous facade fading into the background as she glimpsed a world where trust was not transactional and love was not a calculated risk but a leap of faith. That roadside encounter became a turning point, a moment suspended in time when Eleanor realized that her wealth and achievements, while significant, were not the sum total of her worth or happiness. It challenged her to confront the walls she had erected, to question the narrative that success meant sacrificing her heart, and to consider the possibility that vulnerability was not weakness but a pathway to true connection. As the tire was secured and goodbyes exchanged, Eleanor's eyes shimmered with the unexpected hope of new beginnings, her spirit rekindled by the simple reminder that behind every story of success lies the universal human yearning to be seen, to be understood, and to be loved not for what one has, but for who one truly is. Under the fading glow of an amber afternoon sun, a quiet stillness settled around the roadside where two strangers found themselves bound by an unexpected circumstance, a flat tire that had halted their journey and, in that pause, gently unraveled the barriers they'd each carefully constructed around themselves. The man, usually composed behind a polished exterior, crouched beside the car, hands working deftly but with a hesitant touch, as if the act of changing the tire was both a practical necessity and an emotional rite of passage. Across from him, the woman stood nearby, her eyes softening with a mixture of gratitude and something tenderly curious, the usual guardedness in her demeanor melting away like mist under the warm light. They spoke little at first, words felt unnecessary amid the rhythmic sounds of the tire iron and the faint rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. Yet, in that shared silence, a profound communication blossomed, an unspoken acknowledgement of vulnerability that neither had anticipated revealing to a stranger. His hands paused, fingers brushing dirt and grease that marked the hard work he was willing to do for someone he barely knew, while she took a cautious step closer, her voice low and steady, breaking through the quiet with a question that wasn't just about the mechanics of the car, but about the man beside her. The conversation that followed was soft and unhurried, a delicate dance where walls crumbled one brick at a time. They traded stories of past failures and quiet hopes, of moments when life had knocked them down, much like this flat tire, and how they had learned to get back up, sometimes alone, sometimes with the unexpected help of another. Each shared confession was a fragile thread weaving them closer, knitting a tapestry of empathy and understanding. In that roadside tableau, the world beyond their small circle, the hum of passing cars, the distant chatter of people faded into insignificance. Here, stripped of pretense, they found a rare kind of connection, a mirror reflecting not just their strengths but their fears and desires, too often hidden from everyday view. The woman's laugh, light and genuine, surprised them both, breaking through the tension and igniting a warmth that lingered in the air. The man smiled, a real smile that touched his eyes, and in that moment, something shifted, an unspoken promise hovering between them, delicate yet resolute. It was not the kind of instant passion found in movies, but a slow, tender unfolding of respect and attraction, born from authenticity and the courage to be seen as they truly were. As the final bolt was tightened and the tire securely in place, they stood side by side, the shared effort etched into their memory like a quiet victory. Neither rushed to fill the silence that followed, instead, they simply looked at each other, a mutual understanding passing in the glance, the recognition that sometimes, life's unexpected detours lead to the most meaningful encounters. In those few minutes on the roadside, they had transcended the superficial roles society often imposed, embracing instead the messy, beautiful complexity of being human, flawed, hopeful, and longing for connection. And as they prepared to part ways, there was a gentle reluctance in their movements, a silent wish that this moment, fragile and fleeting, might linger just a little longer, a tender reminder that beneath the everyday rush, there are always moments where two souls can quietly meet and find something extraordinary in the simplest act of helping and being helped. Beneath the soft glow of the late afternoon sun filtering through the half-open blinds, she sat quietly in her office, the weight of the unspoken heavy on her shoulders, her mind a tempest of conflicting emotions as the idea of accepting help from him, someone from a world so vastly different from her own, stirred a complex turmoil within her. She was a woman forged by self-reliance, by the hard-won battles of a life lived on her own terms, and yet now, faced with challenges that threatened to unravel the careful balance she'd built, she found herself grappling with a vulnerability she had long kept buried, a fear that opening up might mean surrendering control, or worse, exposing cracks she was determined to hide. The hesitance was not born of mistrust but of a profound internal battle between pride and the quiet yearning for connection, a longing to be understood beyond the surface, beyond the roles and masks, yet tethered by the uncertainty of whether someone from his world so foreign, so different could truly grasp the nuances of her struggles. She thought about the moments they'd shared, brief and fleeting though they were, where his quiet presence had pierced through her carefully constructed defenses, and she wondered if the distance between their worlds was a chasm too wide to cross or a bridge waiting to be built. Meanwhile, he wrestled with his own doubts, seated just a few rooms away, his thoughts mirroring hers in a different key, as he questioned his place in her world, a world of polished expectations, hidden battles, and unspoken rules he had only begun to glimpse. His reflections were tinged with a painful awareness of his outsider status, the subtle ways his background and experiences clashed with the life she led, making him wonder if his desire to help was an intrusion or a genuine offer, if his attempts to connect were sincere or doomed by the invisible barriers they both sensed but neither dared fully address. Beneath his calm exterior, there was a fragile hope, a tentative belief that maybe, just maybe, belonging was not about fitting perfectly into someone else's world but about creating a shared space where differences were not obstacles but opportunities for understanding. This rich emotional tension between them, the silent questions, the cautious hopes, the unvoiced fears, formed a delicate dance, an intricate interplay of longing and restraint that neither could ignore. It was in the stolen glances, the pauses in conversation, the unsent messages lingering in their minds, where the true story unfolded, revealing two souls caught between the comfort of solitude and the daunting prospect of connection. She feared losing herself in the process of letting someone in, afraid that vulnerability might expose her to judgment or disappointment, yet she was also quietly desperate for a hand to hold, a voice to reassure her that she was not alone. He, on the other hand, struggled with the fear of rejection, of never truly belonging, no matter how much he wanted to bridge the gap, yet driven by a stubborn hope that genuine connection transcended background and circumstance. In their parallel reflections, the barriers between their worlds began to show cracks, not from grand gestures or dramatic revelations, but from small acts of empathy, moments where silence spoke louder than words, where presence itself was a form of communication. The tension was palpable but not suffocating, filled instead with the promise of growth, of transformation, as each grappled with the courage it took to open doors inward and outward. And as the day faded into twilight, the quiet room held an unspoken understanding, a fragile truce between fear and hope, between past wounds and future possibilities, hinting at a journey neither of them could yet fully see but both felt deep in their bones, a journey toward acceptance, belonging, and the profound healing that comes from sharing one's true self with another, even when that other comes from a world so different, yet somehow, in that very difference, holds the key to unlocking a new way forward. In a quiet corner of a bustling city park, where the noise of rushing footsteps and honking cars softened into the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant laughter of children, two strangers found themselves seated side by side on a worn wooden bench, the world around them fading into a blurred backdrop as their conversation began to unfold like a fragile thread weaving two lives together. She was a woman wrapped in layers of determination and unspoken dreams, her hands calloused from years of hard work, her eyes holding both the weight of struggles past and a flicker of hope for what might still come. He, on the other hand, carried the quiet armor of privilege, clean-cut, neatly dressed, his polished shoes barely touching the earth beneath the bench, yet beneath the veneer of success and comfort lay a heart hungry for genuine connection, craving something real in a world often reduced to transactions and appearances. What started as small talk about the weather soon blossomed into something far more profound, as words peeled back the layers each had long guarded. She shared stories of childhood in a neighborhood where opportunity was scarce, where dreams had to be fought for tooth and nail, and where kindness was a currency more precious than gold. Her voice trembled at times, revealing the raw edges of a past punctuated by loss and resilience, a mother who had sacrificed everything to keep her family afloat, a brother whose laughter was now just an echo in her memory. In response, he spoke softly of the invisible chains that bound him despite the comforts that surrounded him, a family legacy of expectations, the suffocating pressure to succeed, and the loneliness of living behind glass walls, both literal and metaphorical. His fears were not of hunger or hardship, but of meaninglessness, of a life measured only in achievements rather than moments of true belonging. As their stories intertwined, a bridge formed over the chasm of their social and economic differences, constructed from threads of empathy and human kindness that transcended status and circumstance. She spoke of dreams deferred but not destroyed, a wish to start a community center for children like those she once knew, a place where laughter could bloom unhindered and futures could be rewritten with care and opportunity. He confessed his secret desire to walk away from the boardrooms and briefcases, to find a life where his worth was not dictated by balance sheets but by the impact he could have on others. They laughed together at the absurdity of their assumptions about each other, the preconceived notions shattered by the vulnerability they courageously shared. Tears welled in her eyes as he listened, truly listened, without judgment or pity, and she, in turn, found solace in his openness, a rare gift in a world often cloaked in pretense. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue that seemed to bless their newfound connection, and for a moment, neither noticed the divide that society so often imposed. There was only two souls, meeting in the quiet space between words, bound by the simple, profound act of understanding. In that brief encounter, they rediscovered the power of empathy, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a force that could reshape perspectives and heal unseen wounds. As they rose to leave, the world resumed its pace, yet something had changed irrevocably. Each carried away a piece of the other's story, a reminder that beneath the surface of labels and circumstances, there lies a shared humanity yearning to be recognized. The bench they had occupied seemed to hold a lingering warmth, a silent witness to a moment when two hearts dared to connect beyond the walls built by society, proving that kindness, when given freely and received openly, has the power to unite even the most disparate worlds. Their paths would diverge again, but the imprint of their conversation would remain a beacon of hope that no matter where one starts, or what divides us, the courage to share and the grace to listen can bridge any gap, transforming strangers into companions on the shared journey of life. The moment they parted was quiet, almost understated, yet beneath its calm surface flowed a current of change neither could deny. As the CEO turned away, her steps measured and steady, she felt the weight of the encounter settle deep within her chest, a mingling of relief and sorrow, of resolve and vulnerability. The manager's retreating figure carried a similar burden, though cloaked in a complex tapestry of regret and newfound clarity. They had met at a crossroads, not just as colleagues locked in conflict, but as two people whose lives had intersected in a way that would ripple far beyond that brief exchange. The room around them, filled moments ago with tension, now hummed softly with the quiet energy of endings and beginnings, a space where something ordinary, a decision, a conversation, had sparked an extraordinary shift. Inside her, the CEO wrestled with the delicate balance of power and compassion. She knew that leadership demanded more than commands and policies, it demanded courage to face discomfort and make hard choices without losing sight of humanity. Though the confrontation had tested her, it had also peeled back layers of doubt, revealing a core of strength she hadn't fully recognized before. She realized that change was not merely about asserting control but about opening the door for growth, both for herself and for the people she led. Meanwhile, the manager, walking away from the place she once thought unshakable, felt the sting of defeat mixed with a flicker of hope that this ending might become a new beginning, a chance to reflect and rebuild beyond old patterns and grievances. In the silence that stretched between their parting, both carried the quiet understanding that their conflict had been a catalyst, a mirror reflecting their own fears, ambitions, and limitations back at them with unflinching honesty. They recognized that in the act of standing their ground, they had also offered each other a gift, the opportunity to grow, to let go, to move forward differently. The air between them held no bitterness, only the fragile threads of respect weaving their way through the aftermath. This was more than a mere professional separation, it was a moment pregnant with possibility, a shared acknowledgement that sometimes the smallest acts, firm words spoken, doors quietly closed can unlock profound transformation. As the CEO paused by the showroom's vast windows, watching the fading figure disappear into the afternoon light, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She saw not an adversary vanquished, but a fellow traveler on a difficult path, each carrying burdens and hopes, each searching for meaning in the unpredictable currents of life. Her heart, steady but softened, beat with the quiet promise that from this fracture, something new could emerge: resilience, understanding, renewal. The dealership, once a battleground of wills, now felt less like a fortress and more like a home, a place where challenges could be met with grace and where growth was born not in spite of conflict, but because of it. In that lingering silence, both women felt the invisible shift take hold, an unspoken pact to carry forward the lessons learned, to honor the vulnerability shown, and to embrace the unknown with courage. Their paths had diverged, yet their lives were forever intertwined by this shared moment of reckoning and hope. It was a testament to the power of human connection that even in parting, there is unity, even in endings, there is the seed of new beginnings. And so, as the sun dipped lower, casting warm hues across the polished floors, they moved forward separately but not alone, each carrying within her the quiet flame of change sparked by an ordinary act that had become anything but. In the quiet moments that followed their brief encounter, she found herself unexpectedly carried away by memories of his kindness, a gentle gesture that, like a sudden breeze on a sweltering day, had stirred something long dormant within her. Each day, as she moved through her familiar routines, her mind would wander back to the young man's earnest eyes, the warmth in his smile that seemed to cut through the weariness she carried like a second skin. It wasn't just the kindness itself, it was the rare feeling of being seen, truly seen, without pretense or judgment, that lingered in her heart and whispered of a hope she had quietly tucked away. She allowed herself to imagine the possibility of trust, fragile yet tantalizing, as if his presence had cracked open a door she thought had been sealed forever. That hope didn't rush her or overwhelm her, it simply flickered steadily, like a candle flame, offering light in the shadowed spaces where doubt had taken root. She pondered how love, or something like it, might grow from such unexpected kindness, understanding that sometimes, the smallest acts held the greatest power to heal. Meanwhile, miles away but tethered by the same invisible thread, the young man carried his own transformation quietly inside. The encounter had opened his eyes to new possibilities, shifting the boundaries of what he once believed his life could hold. Before meeting her, his world had been a narrow path, mapped by routine and circumscribed by fears he hadn't fully acknowledged. But in her presence, even briefly, he glimpsed the freedom to dream beyond those limitations, to consider a future rich with connection, with vulnerability, with the courage he hadn't known he possessed. Her strength, wrapped in subtle grace, ignited in him an urge to pursue not just his ambitions, but a deeper kind of fulfillment that transcended achievement or recognition. He felt an awakening, a stirring in his soul that nudged him toward uncharted territories of hope and trust, and for the first time, he allowed himself to believe that the world might hold more for him than he had dared to imagine. Both carried their reflections forward, sometimes separately, sometimes intertwining in quiet moments of longing and resolve. She cherished the spark of hope he had ignited within her, a gentle reminder that kindness could be a bridge, a lifeline to something profound. And he held on to the inspiration she had unwittingly given him, a beacon guiding him toward new horizons. Though their lives continued apart, the impact of their meeting lingered like an echo, a shared secret that whispered of what could be when hearts open and barriers fall away. It was a story not yet finished, a beginning forged in the simple, transformative power of kindness and the courage to trust. In the quiet hum of everyday life, where routines often blur into monotony, two seemingly disparate souls found themselves on an unexpected collision course, their paths crossing through a series of small yet profound acts of kindness and courage that neither could have predicted would forever change their worlds. One was a woman weathered by hardship, her heart guarded but yearning for connection, carrying scars of past pain that made every gesture of trust feel like an act of bravery. The other, a man whose life had been marked by relentless ambition and a search for meaning beyond the confines of success and expectation, silently longing for a purpose that transcended his own desires. Their worlds, so different in appearance and experience, began to intertwine through moments as simple as a shared smile, a listening ear, and the quiet strength of standing by each other in moments of vulnerability. It was in these small acts, offering a hand when it was most needed, speaking truths that had long been buried, and choosing hope over despair, that their connection deepened, forming a fragile but unbreakable bond built on trust and mutual respect. The woman, once afraid to dream, found herself inspired by the man's courage to face his fears and redefine what success meant to him, while the man, in turn, discovered the healing power of empathy and the richness of love that comes from genuine human connection. Their story was not one of grand gestures or dramatic transformations, but rather a tapestry woven with everyday moments of kindness and bravery that created a shared narrative of growth and healing. Together, they navigated the complexities of their pasts and the uncertainties of their futures, discovering that true strength lies not in isolation but in the willingness to be vulnerable and open to change. Their lives, once so different, became a testament to the extraordinary potential hidden within ordinary encounters, reminding all who witnessed their journey that sometimes, the smallest acts can spark the most beautiful beginnings. In the quiet spaces between their laughter and tears, hope blossomed, love took root, and two paths merged into one, creating a shared story that inspired those around them to believe in the power of kindness and the courage to embrace life's unpredictable journey. Through their intertwined journey, they revealed that no matter how different two lives may seem, the threads of compassion and bravery can unite them in a way that leads not only to healing and growth but to a profound and enduring connection that redefines what it means to love and to be loved. Their story, gentle yet powerful, serves as a reminder that in a world often shadowed by fear and uncertainty, it is the small, courageous acts of kindness that light the way toward hope, offering a beacon for others to follow and a promise that from the simplest moments, the most beautiful stories can arise.